know you would like to some kind of way extract something out of this bottle, all right, that's not there. It's not there. You all speculate and create things, and then you want people to respond to it. So you can ask the bottle, but don't ask me.
We hope you liked our rendition of the Sports Center theme song.
Yeah, it's pretty spot
because we
on.
had no idea. We had no idea how to start this show, so that's what you get.
Yeah. What's up, guys?
Yeah, hey, you're listening. You're listening to Ask the Bottle, an SEC fan cast. My name is Clint Childers. His name is Mitch Davis, the Georgia Peach. Write to us at askthebottlecast@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram @bottlecast. Please still follow us, please, after that. Listen and subscribe to us on iTunes and SoundCloud. Leave us a rating. Tell us that you're no longer listening to the show because of that garbage intro. What's new, Mitch?
Not much, man. Just another week, you know. Got my Tennessee hoodie on today. Repping it.
Repping the Vols.
After a big win.
It's amazing that you still repping the Vols after, your team is the best team in the country, according to the committee.
I'm big on, reverse mojo, I guess, as far as college football goes. But I was just stoked. The Vols snapped a 4-game losing streak. Wearing my hoodie. Had it since I was like 12.
Yeah, ironically enough, I'm actually wearing an Arkansas shirt right now. Unfortunately.
Hey, they got a win too.
It's only a win on paper. It's a loss in our hearts.
Oh.
In other semi-related news, we finally hit 100 pages on our show note Google Doc.
So that's a milestone, I think.
Oh, yeah, man. We are really strapped for material, aren't we?
It takes me so long to scroll all the way to the bottom.
I did notice that, too. Every time we get on there to go, it's like, scroll, week 10.
And it won't load fast enough for me to get all the way down there, so it's just like, okay.
All right, well, now that we've lost everybody, let's start talking about some football.
Woohoo!
The games that were not in the SEC were amazing.
Yeah, oh, no doubt.
This was, I feel like this is the week that everybody's kind of been waiting for, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's go ahead and drop into it. Let's talk about Bedlam.
Ooh.
That game was crazy, man.
Seriously.
Number 5, Oklahoma rolls into Stillwater and beats number 11, Oklahoma State, 62-52.
It was just ridiculous, man. I mean, it was everything everybody wanted it to be, and then so much more.
Check this out. The over-under for this game was 72.5 points, right?
Yeah.
The point total at halftime was 76.
This is ridiculous. That's
So,
Bedlam.
Exactly. There was a huge targeting penalty late in the game that would negate an interception and keep Oklahoma State alive. But Oklahoma would score late twice and come away with the win. Huge win for Baker Mayfield and the Sooners. And, I think they could only, keep rising from here. That was probably their hardest opponent, except for maybe TCU. I don't think they've played them yet, have they?
I don't believe so, but I mean, yeah, they are, they're in it, man. They are firmly in it, as we've seen before. But we'll see if they can keep it rolling. Yeah, they play TCU next week. This week.
This week. Okay, cool. Let's talk about the Ohio State Iowa game. What'd you think about that one?
Dude, Iowa. Man, Iowa heard all of the pro Ohio State talk I was throwing up last week after they beat Penn State and just decided to just cram it as far down my throat as physically possible.
Yeah, head coach Kirk Ferentz is going to get another 25-year contract extension after that one.
Seriously.
He'll be coaching well into the afterlife.
He'll be there, yeah. No joke.
This is actually the highest point total Urban Meyer has given up in his entire career.
That is a fascinating stat.
The closest was way back at Bowling Green when he gave up 49 points.
Whoa.
So it's been quite a while since any of his defenses have dropped the ball this hard. And not
Oh,
only
they
did his
dropped it.
yeah, they dropped it like into the Grand Canyon. Not only did his defense drop the ball, JT Barrett threw a lot of picks.
Yeah, he really did. Again, every area that I was like, Ohio State, forced to be reckoned with, can control the game. And, Barrett's going to come in and he's just going to zone in and you can't stop him. That was totally not true.
He had thrown 1 interception coming into this game. He threw 4 against Iowa.
Right? I mean, I thought I was in pretty safe territory, but Iowa, it was just one of those games, it just happens.
They opened up the game with a pick 6, like first play.
Right. I was like, here we go. Oh boy.
Yeah, hopefully the kids in the children hospital across the street had a really good time watching that one from the windows.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that would have been a very cool game for them to see.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes me feel really good about it. They got to watch Iowa just steamroll Ohio State all night.
It's hard to feel bad for Ohio State when sick kids got to watch it.
Yeah, I mean,
what I mean?
people
It's just
already
like,
have a hard enough time, and then you're like, well, and it's for the greater good, so yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Ohio State.
Right.
All right,
number 6, by the way.
Yeah. This was this was a huge win for Iowa. Moving right along, keeping it in the Big Ten. Number 7, Penn State falls to number 24, Michigan State, 27-24 after a 3+ hour severe weather delay.
Ooh.
They got halfway through the second quarter with Penn State up 14-7, and there was lightning in the area, and per NCAA rules, they had to clear the stadium, stop the game. They didn't start playing until 3.5 hours later, and Michigan State came out a different team. I guess they just needed the break.
You're right. Those rain games, man, they're something like that always happens, it seems like. One team just comes back out just with momentum, and yeah, in that case, Penn State just couldn't do it. I mean, we've talked about Michigan State and how the coaching staff and how they can certainly rise to the occasion. And it's just Penn State, got beat up last week and just could not get it done.
Yeah, we'll see how this ends up messing with the Big Ten as far as the playoff goes. Obviously, if Wisconsin wins out, including that conference championship game, they're firmly in the playoffs. But if they drop the conference championship game to Ohio State or Penn State, they could leave the Big Ten out of the equation. We'll just have to see how it goes.
Yeah, and just to clarify, super minor, I meant Ohio State was number 6. Now in the AP they're number 11. So still up there. Still, that could still be a very important game, not for the playoff picture, but just in general.
All right, and to a game that I've been looking forward to, and you and I have both been looking forward to for a long time: Clemson and NC State.
Yeah, man, I really thought the Wolfpack were going to pull this one out.
I did too, man, and all the way up until the very end, it looked like they had it.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
They gave up that late touchdown.
Did you see that guy that kept taking the towels?
Yeah, you know who that was, right?
That
was Bradley Chubb.
Oh yeah, Knicks.
Yeah, he kept stealing Kelly Bryant's towel.
That was so funny. I didn't even realize that was Bradley. That's awesome. Well, he's getting just as much airtime as his cousin, I guess.
Well, he's a great player.
Yeah, no doubt.
Antics aside, he's insane. Speaking of Kelly Bryant, though, he's back and he looks really good.
Yeah,
he
glad
scored
to see
that.
him healthy.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to see anything severe. But he scored that fourth quarter touchdown on the ground to put Clemson up and win the game. So, I mean, he's definitely back in what looks to be full form, which is going to be really good for Clemson moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, they're talk about somebody who's squarely still in the big picture.
Who's their biggest threat? Miami in the conference championship game?
I would say so at this point.
Yeah, definitely. Unless South Carolina just pulls it out. But
that's right. That's a super. Watching South Carolina this past weekend, and I'll get into it in my notes. But that's definitely going to be a rough one for Clemson.
And real quick, I just want to give some love to some other teams. Not going to really talk super in depth about these games. I just want to roll these scores out real quick. Speaking of Miami, they beat down number 13 Virginia Tech to the tune of 28-10.
Really big win. It's an important statement for Rick and them to make, I think, if they have any stake in the playoff picture whatsoever.
Matt Campbell, future Arkansas head coach Matt Campbell, and the red hot Iowa State Cyclones lose to the Mountaineers in West Virginia, 20-16. That's rough to see. I really liked them.
That's a tough one.
Top 25 matchup in Stanford and Washington State. It's good to see Mike Leach kind of right the ship. They take down Stanford 24-21.
Yeah, I mean, with 2 losses, this was like in arguably must-win territory for Washington State just to stay ranked, to stay, in there, and beating Stanford, we know is no small task. So, yeah, definitely a big game for Mike.
And keeping it again in the top 25 and in the Pac-12, we have USC taking down Arizona 49-35. Arizona's quarterback, Khalil Tate, is something else, and it was really good to see them keep up with this defense that we know is really good. Mm-hmm. But in the end, Clay Helton and the Trojans just got it done.
Oh, yeah.
All right, awesome. Well, on to the Southeastern Conference, where it was exciting? Maybe not.
It was like it's your birthday or something, and you're expecting like a new bike, and you get like a little note that says you're going to get a bike, but we're just not sure when.
You're going to get it. You're going to get a new bike, but it's in Atlanta.
Yeah, there you go. That's perfect.
Oh man. Well, why don't you in keeping with Ask the Bottle tradition, why don't you kick it off?
Alrighty. Let's do it. I'm just going to start off with what I thought was the most exciting game of the week, the Ole Miss Kentucky game. Ole Miss pulling this one out 37-34. This was a heck of a game.
Yeah, you're right about that. This was the most exciting game in the conference.
Yeah, and I don't usually lead with the one that I thought was most exciting, but I just really want to talk about this game. It was just back and forth all day long in what was, an absolute must-win game for Kentucky, and then just an angry game for Ole Miss after losing to Arkansas. This game was basically like watching Jordan Ta'amu and Benny Snell just play against each other. I mean, both of these guys have been absolutely going off over the past 2 weeks, and in my opinion, individually, are the 2 hottest players in the conference over the past 2 weeks, no doubt, in my mind.
Yeah, they're putting up crazy numbers.
Just real quick, on the day, in this game, Ta'amu went 31 for 40 for 382 yards, 4 touchdowns, and no picks. Snell carrying the ball 28 times for 176 yards, that's 6.3 per carry, and 3 scores. That's just this game. Over the last 2 weeks, Ta'amu has thrown for 750 yards and 6 touchdowns with 1 pick. 2 of those are rushing, but still. Snell has rushed for 356 yards and 6 touchdowns over the past 2 weeks. That's nuts, man.
Yeah, that's crazy. Not to mention the fact that Benny Snell's been playing a lot of Wildcat quarterback, too.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. So, yeah, I mean, those guys, it was just like watching their highlight reels. So it's like, this is going to be, if they're in the draft, I'm pretty much going to see these past 2 games, and that's probably I don't know. But Ta'amu, though, I'm becoming a believer. I mean, Ole Miss next year is going to be really interesting, just the way that he's playing.
And looking at those numbers, it's kind of crazy that the point total was as low. I mean, it's not a low point total, but, in the 30s is kind of low for these numbers.
Right. Well, that's the funny thing is he, with those 750 yards, he had no passing touchdowns last week against Arkansas. And he did have the 2 rushing scores, but yeah, it's just funny that he could throw for that many yards and have no passing touchdowns in that game. But yeah, anyway, just a great game. A lot of fun offense to watch. All those stats, not to discredit Steven Johnson, who played a heck of a game as well. Completed 80% of his passes, 204 and a score. Like you said, just a senior being a senior, he continues to just gut it out each week. I mentioned that this game was back and forth. And I mean, there was literally 1 punt in the first half. The possessions went Ole Miss punt, Kentucky field goal, Ole Miss touchdown, Kentucky field goal, Ole Miss field goal, Kentucky TD, Ole Miss TD, Kentucky TD, and then it was halftime. I was just like, geez.
It's like a game of Madden, dude. Who punts in Madden?
Right. Exactly. Yeah, Kentucky, just going into the second half, Kentucky scored on a 47-yard touchdown to C.J. Conrad, who led the Wildcats in receiving, and it looked like, like we've seen before, Kentucky had a real chance to show everybody they weren't going to blow this one like they did against Florida. They had put together a solid bit of a lead. They might run away with it, and then out of nowhere, like a lost ship in the dark, finding its shore, the Land Shark defense appeared.
That was beautiful.
Out of nowhere.
That was beautiful.
The Rebels forced 4 consecutive UK 3-and-outs, while Ole Miss put up 13 unanswered points after the Kentucky second half opening touchdown, which I did not expect at all. I mean, I've been talking about how bad this defense is for the past month.
Yeah, they're not. I mean, they're a shell of what, the past defenses have been, like that 2014, 2015 defense.
Right, yeah, exactly.
It's a long way from there.
Yeah. But Kentucky still rebounded, scored on another Benny Snell run with 2:10 left to go in the game. They're up 34-30, 2 minutes left. Tamu making his second start, now 2-minute drill. He just got it done, man. I mean, 71-yard, 2-minute drive, 7-yard pass to DK Metcalf, just gorgeous catch, unbelievable touch throw by Tamu, and that ended up being it.
Yeah, I bet that's kind of one of those situations. Look, when you're playing an offense like Ole Miss, who doesn't need a lot of time to score, I guarantee you there were a lot of Kentucky fans when Snell got in the end zone with about 2 minutes left. They were like, "That's way too much time."
Oh no.
That's way too much time.
An
offense like Ole Miss just needs about 30 seconds.
Right. Well, I'm just impressed by Tamu stepping up, and I just can't wait to see how he plays next year when they have someone on the line, and what happens with this whole Patterson thing if he actually leaves, and it just makes the situation very interesting to me. But man, it has been. I know Kentucky's had some rough years, but it's been a rough one. I can't say it's not entirely on them, though. They blew that lead against Florida, had the holding penalty thing and the field goal, kind of rough. But then they just got completely waxed by Mississippi State. And in this game, they just got barely, like you said, Ole Miss was able to capitalize, and their defense showed up, and they just barely got outplayed by an offense that's, in my opinion, now really finding its rhythm. And starting to plan for next year. And this Kentucky loss clinches the SEC East title for Georgia and sends the East into an even deeper level of dumpster fire, in my opinion, after that point. The Cats come to Nashville to take on the Doors next week, which is honestly, to me, like an amazing matchup. But at this point in the season, I don't know why, but to me it just feels like a cruel, sad bit of scheduling to have these two teams play each other, because one of them's going to lose. And in my opinion, whoever loses this game next week gets the vote for biggest L, in my opinion, because whoever loses this game is going to feel terrible. And probably if it's Vandy, it's like bowl eligibility, maybe not going to happen. For Kentucky, it'll be like, okay, we went from thinking, hey, we have a little bit of a bid in the East to now we're just back to being, mediocre. So anyway, I'm calling Vandy at home in this one, 28-24. I think they're, we saw at the end of last year how Derek Mason, pushed them hard enough to become bowl eligible, and I see it happening again this year.
We love picking Vanderbilt.
I
don't know what it is. It's just like you can't. It's just like no, they can be so bad, and there's just something. There's just like, come on, man.
They just should.
You want to just pick us, dude.
They just should be better. But we'll see. I'm mainly doing it. I'm calling them 28-24, so it's certainly not by a large margin. But I'm just calling them because they're at home and because Kentucky, I know, is just devastated after that loss. And Vanderbilt actually won a game, which I'll get into last week. Anyway, Ole Miss welcomes Louisiana Lafayette to Oxford this week, a team that the Aggies beat handily earlier this season. I say Tamu goes all out full on ham, eggs, and bacon on the Raging Cajuns, 41-10 at home.
Did you just make that up?
What? Ham,
Eggs, and bacon?
I've probably heard it somewhere, but I just kind of was. I was gonna say go ham, but then I was like thinking about what I had for breakfast, and I was like, whole thing.
Smoked meats. All right, well, moving it back to the West. This isn't the best game in the West. I know you started with your best game. And from a purely football place, unfortunately, the best game in the West, in my opinion, was that Coastal Carolina Arkansas mess, whatever that was. We're gonna do that in a minute, but I want to start with the marquee game, quote unquote, of the West, which was LSU Alabama.
Oh, no doubt.
Number 19 at the time, LSU goes into Tuscaloosa and loses to number 2 Alabama, which is really weird to say. It's weird to say number 2 instead of number 1, just because I don't know. I am who I am, and I grew up where I grew up. This game just ain't what it used to be, man.
Right.
With a lot of the SEC West pretty down right now, the hard-fought neck-and-neck LSU-Bama games of old are long gone. And on paper, this game looks pretty even. LSU kept up with Alabama in every aspect except for points scored, which is what you need to win. LSU outgained Alabama 306 yards to 299. LSU had 16 first downs to Bama's 14. LSU even had more rushing yards than Alabama, 151 to 116. The only problem was yards don't equal points. I mean, you can run up and down the field all you want, but if you can't punch it in, there's really no point, is there?
No.
Red zone woes continue to plague LSU, and they will until they can shore up play calling inside the 20. Now, they did show some new looks. Darrell Williams played some Wildcat quarterback and even busted up a big gainer up the middle. That's exciting to see.
Oh, yeah.
But ultimately, they couldn't score against an Alabama defense that got real comfy in the backfield. They had 6 sacks and 9 tackles for loss. On offense for Alabama, Henry Ruggs III caught his first pass not for a touchdown this season. It was only his 6th catch, by the way. I'm not sure what caused that decline. Henry Ruggs, I don't know what you're doing, man.
Yeah, dude.
You drinking too much? Come on. You got a game to win.
You got to make a touchdown 100% of the time. Every time you touch the ball.
I'm surprised Saban didn't cut him after that. This was the best defense Alabama had seen all year, except for Florida State, which, I mean, I guess hindsight 2020 on that one. And probably will be until they play Auburn or Georgia. Which, by the way, they will be playing Georgia, barring some crazy Iron Bowl. They're going to be playing Georgia in the SEC championship game. We called it, I think, week 3. Everybody knows it. It's going to happen.
I do think Mississippi State, that's a formidable defense, in my opinion, that they're going to be going up against. But other than that, we'll see what the Grand Man has in that game.
The Grand Man. If LSU can hold them to just 24 points in this game, I would expect low-scoring games against Georgia at least. Maybe Auburn if their secondary can step up.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, the SEC championship game, it's sort of like all bets are off. But I definitely agree that the Iron Bowl could be a very gritty one this year.
Next week, Alabama heads to Starkville, like we just talked about, to play Mississippi State. And with the Bulldogs just eking out that win over UMass, which I'll talk about a little bit later, this game looks way less exciting than it did last week. Mississippi State is going to have home field advantage, but I don't think that'll matter at all. I mean, unless they, I don't know, the cowbells, you experienced it firsthand. Maybe they just jar people.
They're loud. I'm not going to, but I wonder what Saban will have dialed up for practice this week. Maybe they'll have like just 8,000 air horns or something more loud.
Is he one of those coaches that does that?
I don't know. I mean, I don't really know. It's pretty low key about everything.
The Bama front 7 is going to do a good job, in my opinion, of containing Nick Fitzgerald, and the Bulldog offense won't be able to move the ball.
That's all you really got to do.
That's all you got to do. The Tide rolls 35-20 over Mississippi State. I know that's kind of a wide point margin. I know Mississippi State's been playing better than that, but man, I just think Alabama comes into this thing. I think
It's
Nick
more
Saban's.
prepared.
Yeah, I think Nick Saban sees this as a trap game, and he's gonna come. He's gonna have them ready for it, and they're gonna come in there and they're not gonna let their foot off the gas. And I just don't think Mississippi State's gonna have it in them.
So you think it's like a reverse trap game where Mississippi State's like, I think we might be able to beat them. And then Alabama's like, we know you think you're going to beat us, so we're going to beat you that much worse.
Yeah, and no bad blood to the Cowbells. That's just what I think.
No, I get you. Well, yeah, I know. I totally understand. I think I'm going to chalk up this past week to maybe a little head start for Dan Mullen on the Alabama prep. Maybe a little sleepiness in that game mixed
Yeah,
with
definitely. That's a point. That's a point I have written down. Just kind of a sleeper, you know.
Yeah, maybe some of that UMass magic that's been happening. They've been close in all these games. It feels like I texted you. I was like, has UMass played every single team and lost by a little bit, like in the FBS? But,
yeah, they've been making the SEC rounds this year.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, man, I think 35-20. I think the halftime score is going to be close.
Yeah, you're right. It's and that's just one of those Alabama slow burners, man.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of go into it maybe like a score down or something, and
right?
Then come back in the second half and they wear on you. It's just depth.
No doubt.
It's hard to compete. But for LSU, they get to go home to Baton Rouge to play Arkansas.
Woohoo!
And oh, God help
That's
the
a real
Hogs.
Classic.
God help the Hogs. I mean, the fact that this game is at 11 a.m. says it all. I mean, this is a rivalry game with a trophy, and it's at 11 a.m.
That's bleak.
LSU is definitely better than Coastal Carolina. And the Hogs are going to get wrecked in this game. They're going to get spit fired and roasted and slathered with some barbecue sauce and maybe some dry rub and a side of baked beans.
You know what they should do? They should just put Kelly.
Well, a Cajun rub since it's in Baton Rouge.
Oh yeah, they should put Kelly, Swag, and
Swole.
Swole. That's right, Swole Kelly. They should put Swole Kelly and Austin Allen in at the same time. They should just play all the snaps, and you never know what's going to happen.
Oh God, they should just make Cole Kelly a running back.
Yeah, or like tight end or something. Well, I feel like he'd get laid out.
Yeah, he's not. He's so top heavy, man. He just fall down. But yeah, I think LSU is going to dominate on all sides of the ball. They're going to win a healthy 41-20 in this game. And they're going to they already have the boot because they won it last year, so they're going to keep the boot in Baton Rouge. I mean, there's going to have to be nothing short of a miracle for Arkansas to win this game.
It'll be, I hope it's a good one, because that would be really fun to watch. You always hope these trophy games are fun, and yeah, we'll see. But I can't really fight you on that. That sounds pretty accurate.
Yeah, and not to put too bleak of a point on it, but I mean, this has historically been the game in my entire life that I've always looked forward to the most in the season. You know, the LSU Arkansas games have always been crazy, but every year both teams have always at least fielded a competent team, and that's just not the case this year. But we can move on to the East.
All right. Well, I'm gonna mix in some of these non-conference games, in with the conference games. So I'm gonna go ahead to, since we just talked about them, Vanderbilt, Western Kentucky. Vanderbilt hangs on in this one. It was 31-17 was the final, but it was a pretty close game. I definitely don't think Vandy was expecting to have a worse record than Western Kentucky coming into this game. But that's the world we're living in.
Not the way they started, for sure.
Yeah, right? I know. A little feather in the cap for Derek Mason and company. They are now undefeated in non-conference games this year. Pretty good.
Oh, nice. Nice.
Oh, man. They're pretty entertaining, Vandy non-conference games, honestly. I mean, there was a trick play by Western Kentucky, and then, like, Vandy touched that punt, and, you know, Western Kentucky got it, but Vandy still wins, so it's, like, it's thrilling, you know? Really thrilling stuff. The first half was pretty neck and neck. Both teams basically just trading scores until Vandy went ahead 21-14 by the time we got to the half. The Doors followed it up with 14 unanswered points after Western Kentucky opened up the third quarter with a field goal. And Vandy, to their credit, they found two things that they've been desperately needing all year in this game, and that was a run game and their defense. Good night. Both of them finally. Ralph Webb broke loose for 104 yards on 23 carries and a score on a pretty tough run. He broke like 2 or 3 tackles. His second game, over 100 yards on the year. He now has 4 touchdowns in the last 4 games. So, the seasoned vet, Ralph, that feel like we talk about him every week on the show. He's feels like he's been in my mind for like 8 years now. But
he's like our live mascot. Just like Ralph Webb.
Speaking of just how long we've been watching this guy, he's now 11th all time in the SEC with 3,885 career rushing yards. 11th ever.
That's great, and it's crazy because he hasn't really had like a breakout season or anything. It's just a product of just physically how long he's been running the ball.
Right, just doing it.
You know what I mean? It's just like grinds it out. I mean, it's just the accumulation of yards over 5 years, but nevertheless impressive.
Oh, no doubt. But yeah, just good to see him get some. Just the run game kind of progressing a little bit, even against a weaker team. But Trent Sherfield had a long rushing score. Shermer doing his thing through a pair of scores, 220 yards. His 21 passing touchdowns are the highest for Vandy since 2005. Can you guess who the quarterback was senior year?
Was it Jay Cutler?
It was Jay Cuddy.
Wow.
So Kyle Shermer joining some elite
famed Miami Dolphins quarterback.
Lifelong. By the way, just for the sake of saying it, if you go into Ralph Webb's stats, you actually can go all the way back to 2014. That feels so long, but it's only 4 years. It feels like I should go back to like 2000. Anyway, I need to. I'm beating a dead horse here. Defense hung tough. Despite the fact that the Hilltoppers threw the ball 53 times in this game, the Doors racked up 6 sacks and 10.5 tackles for loss and grabbed a pick to ice the game at the end of it. They also held Western Kentucky to -6 yards on 30 carries, which I don't care who you're playing. That's shutting it down. That's averaging -6 yards per carry.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good performance. I mean, it doesn't really matter. Yeah, you're right. It doesn't necessarily matter what running game you're playing. Just to completely not allow positive yardage is definitely a good sign.
Right. Just,
especially about when you're about to have to play Benny Snell.
Right. I'm taking every last chance I have before this run of SEC games to put feathers in Vandy's hat. And that's solid. But anyway, so yeah, I don't know. Vandy just solid in this one. The snaps a 5-game losing streak for Vandy. Their last win was Kansas State back in September, which we were there.
Oh, is that real?
We were at the game.
Is that really what it's been? Have they really lost 5 straight games?
Yeah, we were at the last win. They've lost 5 in a row. The only team in the East with a bigger, the only team in the East with a longer losing streak was Tennessee, who broke their 4-game losing streak this week.
That is so crazy.
Right.
That's insane. I had no idea that was the case.
Yeah, it's insane. Quick correction. Actually, they held Western Kentucky to an average of -0.2 yards per carry. Not really that important. But with Kentucky, Missouri, and Tennessee left on the schedule for this year, Vandy will look to try and get bowl eligible by the end of the season, which I think is possible, especially given that 2 of their next 3 games are at home. Giving the Doors the edge over Kentucky, as I said, 28-24 this week. We will see who ends up sadder after that one.
Yeah, and they kind of join the rest of the East teams now, just playing for a better bowl.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? It's kind of where we're at now, and that's kind of where we are in the West too. I mean, some crazy things can happen, but we'll see.
Yeah, I still think, Kentucky too distracted, devastated, whatever, by the loss of this past week and the end of the East hopes, modest as they were. I think Vandy capitalizes on the win and keeps it rolling. Don't let me down, Doors.
All right. Well, I'll break your streak of non-conference games of one. I'll talk about an SEC game.
Heck yeah.
Let's talk about Auburn and Texas A&M. Number 14, Auburn steps all over Texas A&M in College Station. The second week in a row, Texas A&M has basically dropped a deuce at home.
I was excited about this game, and it quickly became not exciting.
Yeah, it was just like, yeah, exactly. Auburn beats Texas A&M 42-27. And I talked last week about how bad that home loss against Mississippi State was for Texas A&M, and I'm no soothsayer, Mitchell, but I did say that the Aggies would lose another one this week. But boy, I didn't think it'd be this bad.
No, looked okay to start.
The first quarter was a pretty tight ball game.
Yeah,
it ended 3-0 with the Aggies on top, and I was like, "Good God, is Kevin Sumlin gonna save his job?" But I was young, dumb, and naive. And in the second quarter, the Auburn pass game opened up in a big way, and they never let up. Stidham was near perfect, 20 for 27 for 268 yards, 3 touchdowns. Kerryon Johnson led rushing with 145 yards and a score of his own. And the Auburn defense was all over this game. They held Keith Ford and Travion Williams to just 147 yards between them. And Auburn blocked and recovered a punt in the end zone to end the half. So dominant, to say the least. And for Texas A&M, it looks like Sumlin is going with Nick Starkel moving forward at quarterback. I guess I can't blame him. He looks at least marginally better than Kellen Mond, and it seems like a kind of a move that's just like, look, I got to try something new.
Right.
Starkel's healthy. He was the starter at the beginning of the year. I'm just going to give him the job back and see if he can't win us a game.
Yeah, it's like the move to Guarantano in Tennessee. It's sort of like, maybe, I don't know. You want to give it a shot?
Yeah, you want to try and help me? Starkel did all right. I mean, he threw a couple of touchdown passes, and he didn't turn the ball over, which is what you want. But his completion rate was below half, which is not what you want.
Yeah, I mean, tough defense, kind of, I don't know. Not the worst thing, but yeah, this team still hasn't convinced me that they're anything but below average on the whole.
No, not at all. And there was a little bit of stirring up in Aggie land this week. Somebody had posted on the college football subreddit that Kevin Sumlin had been fired officially, but it turned out to be debunked. I'm sure that will end up being the case in the end, but someone got a little bit excited. And,
it's happening.
And so I was like, oh man, another talking point. But no. This loss leaves Texas A&M at 5-4 on the year. Next week they have New Mexico, who they should beat. Then Ole Miss, which is really a toss-up game, in my opinion, but I'll call it a win right now. And then
I'm calling Ole Miss in that one. Maybe I'm stupid. Maybe
you're calling Ole Miss in that one.
Yeah, I'm calling Ole Miss in that one. I think they're finally hit the point where they're like, whatever, man, we're gonna win as many games as possible.
Man, after the Kentucky game, I am having trouble disagreeing with you, but I'm gonna stick to my guns.
Oh yeah.
But then LSU after Ole Miss, which they'll most likely lose. This means that they'll come out 7-5 in the regular season, which is super disappointing for Aggie fans, and someone will be as good as gone.
Yeah. We need to find some kind of way. There's a lot of big matchups coming for the rest of the season that don't matter in the championship conversation. We should find a way to make them feel really high stakes, because we're so used to these games being huge games, and they're not at this point.
Yeah, it's really weird. Just to kind of go off notes here a little bit and just talk to you listeners candidly. It's really strange to have an SEC podcast this year.
Yeah, weird year to start for sure.
This is definitely a very un-SEC type year. I mean, growing up, we were both born in the 90s, so it's not like the SEC was crazy. But I mean, about the time we were really kicking into gear as far as college football goes, about 2006, 2007. I mean, it was just dominant.
Oh, yeah. I mean...
and now with everything being kind of so down, it's almost like, well, we got to kind of hype this up a little bit. And, sometimes it's just okay football teams playing okay football teams.
Yeah, we're definitely it's a coming back down to earth of sorts. But yeah, it's interesting. A lot more lopsided, and then I mean, yeah, I mean we're in moving into week 11, and the East is clinched. I mean, we're done with that, and it's just a weird feeling.
But kind of to bring us back down here, next week Auburn plays Georgia, and I'd imagine you're on pins and needles for that one.
Oh man, yeah, that's about begins to sum it up. I'm as a fan, as a podcast co-host, I'm fired up because it's a humongous game. Not only in the conference, but not really so much in the conference because Georgia loses this game. They're still going to the championship, but in the playoff picture, enormous game. As a Georgia fan, I am afraid to watch the game. I mean, you're talking to someone who's sat through the Miracle at Jordan Hare game, and I don't even want to get into the rest of it. But yeah, this game should be Georgia's. It should be on par with how exciting the Notre Dame game was. Maybe more fireworks in this one, but it's going to be interesting. What do you think?
I'm crazy excited as a fan of football, as a fan of the place we are in the national picture right now.
Right.
As a podcast co-host, this is the game that I've been excited for since we realized that Auburn and Georgia were both going to be good.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's going to be a Georgia win. Look, their defense is too dominant. Stidham has shown he has issues with great secondaries. UGA wins, man. 21-17. Close and low scoring.
I like the score projection. I could see that either way. Yeah, man, it's just gonna be crazy. I'm gonna be glued to it.
Now, I will tell you this. All three of those touchdowns come through the air. I don't think Georgia scores on the ground at all this game. I think that Auburn has a way better front seven than they do secondary, and I think it's going to force Fromm to throw the ball.
So they're going to finally... Teams have tried to stack the box against Georgia, which I'll get into, and failed, so you think it finally happens.
I think it does. I think Auburn finally has that stout secondary that Georgia is going to have problems against. And look, I know Sam Pittman's got a great offensive line working there. I mean, you don't need me to tell you that.
Right.
But I think Fromm's going to force to make some throws. And, I mean, we'll see. I mean, he did it against Notre Dame with no problem. So we'll see.
I'm calling one of those is a Fromm rushing touchdown, just to throw a bone in there. I'm going to say he gets one on the ground, and maybe I'm just being stupid, but I'm just excited for this game. I've talked. I'm sure listeners, anybody who's listened consistently, is so sick of me saying, it's like every week with Georgia, it's any SEC game you could lose. These rivalries are big, you never know, and then they just blow somebody out, and I look like a doofus. But I legitimately this game now they're finally playing a team that's ranked, that's good, that's a complete team in my opinion in a lot of ways, and it's just gonna be serious. I mean, it's gonna be a huge game. This is one of my favorite, one of the most underrated SEC rivalries in my opinion, and I can't wait for the game.
All right, man. Well, let's hit the East up.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna get into since we're talking about it, Georgia, South Carolina. Just funny thing, Georgia, South Carolina, same score as the Alabama LSU game. Which, is funny to me, and then I think about it, I'm like, yeah, it kind of makes sense. Kind of a fun coaching matchup in this one with Kirby Smart having played defensive back at Georgia from 95 to 98, Will Muschamp having played safety from 91 to 94. Pretty good. Kind of explains, the score, some tough defensive play in this game overall. Easily Georgia's closest game since Notre Dame, not only on the scoreboard, but just in the way it played out. South Carolina came into Athens on a 3-game win streak and held the Dogs to a 14-7 lead at halftime. That is due in part to a super weird start to this game, with Kirby electing to start with an onside kick. Start the game off. South Carolina recovers at like the 50-yard line. I was like, okay, what? But
it's kind of... We talked about like the difference between Kirby Smart and Mark Richt, right? Like
That- yeah.
Richt would have never done that, and I applaud the cojones, but I have to understand as a fan, you probably just were like, all right, dude, what?
Oh yeah, that's exactly what I put in my conclusion for this game was, the Richt, the people who watched through the Richt era have to be glad to hear him say, he was like, we want to hunt, we don't want to be hunted. And I was like, I'm fired up to hear that, but why would you do that? Like, it just seems like a weird way to show that philosophy. Anyway, paid off. So I guess Parker White missed a 46-yard field goal after a South Carolina drive following the onside kick. But then, the Dogs would fumble on a Terry Godwin reception on the 5-yard line on their ensuing drive. Defense comes up big again, forces a punt, and the Dogs played overall pretty clean from then on. The punt set up a Georgia 8-yard Sony Michel score where Fromm throwing a block, which is pretty cool to see. He really led the team. Like I had said, South Carolina, their game plan in this one was pretty clear. They were going to stack the box and force Fromm to throw, as we've seen. And he did. He did it. 16 for 22, 196 yards and 2 touchdowns. And, not bad. The funny thing, though, is that the Dogs still managed 242 yards, just 4.5 yards a carry, roughly 4.6 as a team on the ground. So I don't really know what good that game plan did. Like I said, the Gamecocks answered with a 3-yard running score of their own, but did not find the end zone for the rest of the day. It was sort of like Missouri, where it got off to a weird start, and then by halftime, by the second half, it was like, okay, Georgia is clearly in the driver's seat here. They absolutely stifled the South Carolina running game that has struggled in parts of the season. Gamecocks only rushed the ball 17 times on the day for 43 yards. A.J. Turner leading the way, 8 for 35. Georgia defense snagged 2 picks off Jake Bentley, who has been a huge, basically the cornerstone of this offense with them losing some playmakers. He had a solid day otherwise, 21 35, 227, touchdown and the 2 picks. The Dogs, though, the defense seems to get better as the day goes on. They did not allow the Gamecocks into Georgia territory in the fourth quarter in this game, really locking down. Malcolm Parrish with the pick to ice it, and 9th straight win for the Dogs. They just, they continue to get it done.
Yeah, it's their depth on defense.
Yeah.
It's their depth in the secondary. I mean, you said that they totally took Jake Bentley out of the equation on offense.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do that, I mean, Deebo Samuel's still not around. You have a couple of okay receivers. Your running backs are terrible.
Yeah,
for South Carolina, and you're not going to be able to move the ball. And then you said playing on into the fourth quarter. Again, that's just depth. It's conditioning.
Right.
It's just a Kirby Smart defense. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, they just continue the defense just continues to give them opportunities and Fromm to do what they do best and win games. I mean, the run game was strong. Defense stayed tough, forced turnovers. Fromm just fills in all the gaps. He'll run it in, he'll throw it. He had some huge help from Jamin Williams and McCole Hardman with 2 just like highlight reel catches in this game. Definitely getting some unsung help from his receivers as well. Georgia really gave South Carolina, honestly, like I said, every opportunity to get an early lead. But just a combination of mistakes by the Gamecocks and impressive play by Georgia's defense kept the Dogs in the driver's seat. Georgia goes on to what we're talking about, toughest game of the season. It's funny. It's actually really funny. I called Georgia 21-18 in my prediction.
So you have Auburn scoring 1 more point than me.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm telling you, that's how this game is going to go. I'm glad that this is the one time I'm glad we're in agreement. No, I'm messing with you. But really, I mean, you see what I'm saying, right?
Oh, no doubt. And I mean, my projection has Auburn with a heck of a lot of field goals. But yeah, man, I do agree that I think that is where we're headed in this game. A multiple score, but still very gritty game. And yeah, man, I can't decide whether I want to make a big thing out of it and really, make an event out of watching this game, or if I just want to kind of sit curled up on my bed, just like, okay, like let's watch, like here we go.
You should just curl up in your bed, like put 2 hoodies on and 3 blankets, and just like watch it on your phone, like the smallest screen.
Or like, yeah, Seriously. But South Carolina, on the other hand, they've now lost to Georgia, Kentucky, and A&M, but they've beaten Tennessee, Arkansas, and Vandy. I don't really know what that's supposed to tell you, but with that trend, as they head home to host Florida, I think they'll hang on to beat a team that's struggling mightily right now, 21-10.
Yeah, I completely got your back on that. What that tells me is, look, they've lost to Georgia, they've lost to Kentucky, they've lost to Texas A&M. They've beaten Tennessee, who's terrible. They've beaten Arkansas, who's terrible, and they've beaten Vandy, who could be better. So what it tells me is they're middle of the pack.
Yeah, it's so funny. We're even giving Vandy the benefit of the doubt. They've lost 5 games in a row before Western Kentucky, but they still seem like they should be better than Tennessee.
What's wrong with me?
Arkansas. It's like something I've said it before. It's something in the water here.
Hey, they're better than Arkansas.
I agree with that because
they're
they have a better
Arkansas.
quarterback.
They're better than Tennessee, I think, also, but that's for another week.
That'll be interesting. Anyway, back over to the West, my man.
All right. Well, I'm gonna fly through this game. UMass went to Starkville. We talked about it a little bit earlier, and loses to the number 16 Mississippi State Bulldogs, 23-34. I say loses to, but they kind of ended up giving the game a little bit to Mississippi State. Could have been a lot closer, and was for a long time. And I was watching highlights on Saturday night, and the guy doing the highlights for this game on ESPN said Mississippi State rolled to a 34-23 point win. I wouldn't exactly call what they did in this game rolling.
No.
UMass was firmly in this thing until the fourth quarter. It was tied 20-20 with 5 minutes left in the third. Scoring opened up in this game with a 48-yard pick six by J.T. Gray, and I remember thinking, oh, well, Mississippi State's just going to run away with this one. Not so fast, my friend. Oh, God, that was a terrible Lee Corso impression. I'm sorry.
I liked it.
That sounded better in my head than when it came out of my mouth. It was like, oh, that was bad. I want to give UMass some credit, but really this game was just some weird mistakes by Mississippi State.
Yeah.
Nick Fitzgerald, while he scored twice on the ground, totally underperformed in the passing game through a costly pick six early in the second quarter and just never really found a rhythm on offense.
Yeah, if you had told me there were going to be multiple pick sixes in this game, I would have been like, what?
Neither could UMass really. I mean, they couldn't find a rhythm either. They barely accounted for 300 yards of offense, but they still managed to stay in this game. It took a fourth quarter punt return touchdown by Mississippi State's Dedrick Thomas to give the Bulldogs the victory. This was a rough way to end up 7-2 going into Alabama for Dan Mullen. And it'll hurt their confidence big time in this game. Like I said, Bama wins 35-20 in Starkville.
Yeah, I think that's a solid projection. I still I want to, give Mississippi State every benefit of the doubt I can as an underdog. But, I mean, if Alabama loses this game, what even are they?
Yeah, I mean, I do too. Look, I mean, I want nothing more. Trust me, in my heart of hearts, I want nothing more than for Alabama to lose to Mississippi State. Truly, I do.
But it just doesn't make sense.
It just doesn't make sense. A lot of things in this season haven't made sense, but I mean, just the way that they play against UMass. I mean, they're running right into a buzzsaw next week, and they're not going to be able to just make those dumb mistakes. Nick Fitzgerald's going to have to throw the ball. He's not going to be able to just run up the middle against Alabama.
Yeah, I mean,
and I just don't see it happening.
It's just if a team just commits to shutting him down and gets some success with it early, it's over. It feels like.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, well, let's move it back to the East.
Cool. All right, let's talk about the Missouri-Florida game. 45-16 Tigers. Clint, is this rock bottom? Has Florida hit it? Is that what it looks like? Knowing Florida?
Yeah, I think so. I think historically speaking, just with where Florida has been, you can look beyond Tebow. I'm talking like decades.
Yeah.
For the program that Florida is, and for just the pride that they take in their football, this is real bad. I mean, a midseason fire of a 3-year head coach who's won the division 2 years back to back, and then you lose to Missouri,
get just absolutely destroyed.
Yeah, no. Yeah, lose doesn't quite say it, does it?
No.
Yeah, I'd say this is rock bottom.
Yeah, just knowing, like you said, totally. Just knowing them in recent years, it's a tough one. I just on the Missouri side, apparently Barry Odom and Mizzou, you've heard all that talk, and I talked about it before about how they sort of threw out everything from the first half of the season, and they just got this new plan, they got this new perspective, and they're just seeing it as a new season in the second half. Apparently the game plan for that is come out, have a horrible first drive, and then just put up a ton of points. Over the last 3 games, the Tigers' first drive of the game has started pick, safety, pick. And then they've gone on to score an average of 55 points in the first half of their last 3 games. Like, it's just, I don't know what to do with that, but I just thought it was hilarious.
That's their average over the past 3 games is 55 points.
They've had a pick, a safety, and a pick to start each of their last 3 games on their first possession, and they've scored an average of 55 points per game in the first half. It's like, what? Why does that even, the competition hasn't been impressive over the past couple of weeks with Idaho, Connecticut, and, this Florida team at this point, but I was like, what?
Whoa. You just lumped in Florida with Idaho and UConn. That's rock bottom, my man.
I mean,
that's
they put
rock
up
bottom.
A similar score, it was a similar lopsided total.
They did. They only scored 4 more points on Missouri than UConn did.
Yeah,
it's rock bottom. I don't need any more convincing.
Yeah, I thought that would drive it home. But again, another thing. I don't know if this becomes a give Mizzou a pat on the back thing or more of just Florida just, dropping even further. But if you had to guess, who would you say had more yards in this game? Drew Lock or the Missouri ground game?
I would say Drew Lock.
Right? You'd say Drew Lock probably by 100 yards. But in this game, he almost identical. 228 yards passing, 3 scores for Drew Lock, 227 yards on the ground, and 3 scores on the ground. Larry Roundtree and Ish Witter, this ground game, it's kind of like Vandy. It was like, hey, what you guys run the ball? Never seen that happen. So it was just crazy to see Missouri come out against Florida and put up a balanced, high-scoring, high-flying effort. So, yeah, that's why I lump them in with Iowa and Connecticut, because if you can make Missouri look like a complete contending team, then, well, you're done, man. The Gator defense got absolutely shredded in this game, allowing more than 250 total yards and generating 0 sacks, no tackles for loss, while the Tigers had 8 and held the lone Florida playmaker at this point, LaMichael Pirine, to 66 yards on 19 carries. With the absence of, just with Malik Davis being hurt and just so many players on this team being hurt and missing time for other reasons this year, and the Gators just had a really hard time getting to the end zone with Zaire at quarterback. He was pretty efficient, but, you texted me about it. He threw some bad passes and a really ugly pick on a lob that, 3 different guys were right there, and it just got picked off. And I don't really know what else to say about this one. Malik Zaire, I'm not going to just totally trash Florida. It's been a rough year in so many different ways for this program, but they've just hit this point. Zaire looked okay to me at times. Definitely looked just a little more mature in a way than Franks, which is to be expected. But it just sort of seems like Florida, it's like whoever starts plays poorly and whoever relieves them plays better. It's weird because Franks came in and he looked all right. He looked fine. At that point, there was really no game to be played, but I don't know. Anyway, I'm not going to try and dissect this any further. It's just time for Florida to pack up and find a guy that's going to just fill that position and get them back to where they are used to being. The Gators stay on the road to play South Carolina. As I'd mentioned, I'm calling the Gamecocks 28-13 in a game that's prime for some Muschamp revenge.
The teacher has become the master.
And actually, I don't know if I had mentioned that about South Carolina in my Georgia-South Carolina recap, but yeah, I think South Carolina all the way in this one by multiple scores. Muschamp he's got to be licking his chops about this game coming in. Florida in disarray, just reeling, and just they lost, and that's terrible. But trying to get that bowl, I think they're gonna go all out.
Yeah, I mean Florida's on their deathbed right now, and like you said, I mean South Carolina still has something to play for. And yeah, I totally agree.
The Missouri Tigers look to keep things rolling, in a sense, after their first conference win of the year, and now they host, lo and behold, Tennessee. Tennessee heading to Columbia, and with how hot this offense has been, and with Jarrett Guarantano kind of banged up, I'm told he's probable for this game if he were to be given a designation. I imagine the Tigers will take this one. I'm saying 27-16. I'm saying Tennessee gets down there and is able to kick a lot of field goals, but doesn't score touchdowns. And yeah, I think Tennessee's defense, the secondary is good enough to me to where they'll limit this defense a little bit, but I don't think they'll be able to stop the bleeding enough to win.
I agree with you.
All right.
And on that point, congratulations to the Missouri Tigers for getting their first conference win. Woo! And with Arkansas beating Ole Miss, the Arkansas-Missouri game will feature two teams with a previous conference win.
Nice.
Moral victories, man.
That is big.
You gotta take them when you can get them.
So now that leaves us with Vandy and Tennessee as the only teams without a conference win.
Yet we still pick Vandy every week.
They're dead last.
Oh boy. All right. Well, let's move on to the last West game. Before I get into this game, I guess, Mitch, I want to ask you, is there like an application process for becoming a Georgia fan, or like, do I have to like buy the ticket for the bandwagon? Like,
in my book, just catch up to it and jump on it. That's all
do
you
I have
do.
to like bark at people? I don't know what you guys do. I don't know.
We definitely don't. Outside of that Uga trying to bite that Auburn player back in the day, you just gotta learn the go dog sick 'em the kickoff, and you'll fit right in. You gotta get a little different shade of red from Arkansas.
If you would have me on the bandwagon, I would like to jump on there, because it's hard for me to find any purpose in college football really anymore. And I guess if I can't be an Arkansas fan, I guess I can just be a Sam Pittman fan or something. I don't know.
There you go.
All
Get
right,
a custom jersey with Pittman on the back of it.
Oh, this is such a dark timeline, man. I want to introduce you to the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers.
Underrated.
They're playing their first year in Division I football. They had a 1-7 record going into this game. They have an interim head coach. They have a backup quarterback that played 3 out of the 4 quarters of this game. And their offensive line is comprised of 4 freshmen and a sophomore. And the Arkansas Razorbacks beat them by 1 point. 39-38. It took a fourth quarter multiple score comeback win to beat the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers. In my life, Mitch, in my life, I can't remember a more embarrassing win than this one for any team. You pick any team. I don't care. It's their first year in Division I. Year number 1. They're 1-7. And they just came in and they just beat the hell out of Arkansas, man, in front of like 20,000 people. It was like the saddest crowd I've ever seen in Don Reynolds Razorback Stadium. I just like I'm at a complete loss for words. I just like, it really sucks. It just totally sucks to be an Arkansas fan right now. Like, it just like is the worst thing ever to watch this team. I don't know why I keep doing it. It's just like, it's just the most masochistic thing. Because you know they're terrible. And you know it's going to be painful, but you still do it. It's just like, it's honestly like, what's the point of it anymore? just listening to what Brett Bielema said after this game in the press conferences, I don't know if he knows he's going to get fired. I don't know if Jeff Long has sat him down and said, hey, you're done after this year, but it sure seems like it. TJ Hammonds is a running back for Arkansas that did not see any playing time until Ole Miss. In this game, he carried the ball 7 times for 119 yards and a score on the ground, and he had 1 reception for 60 yards and a touchdown. Why have we not been watching him play all season long? It's because he was hurt. Well, when they asked TJ Hammonds said, "No, I hadn't been hurt."
No way.
It's because he doesn't know the playbook well. When they asked TJ Hammonds how the playbook, no, I've got a pretty good grasp on it.
Well, apparently, if he racked up that many yards.
It's just because he had problems with fumble. Yeah, he fumbles a lot. That's what it is. In practice, he can't hold on to the ball. Guess how many fumbles TJ Hammonds has recorded in his career at Arkansas?
How many?
0. You know what it is?
Man.
He doesn't see eye to eye with Brett Bielema. It's one of those things that he's just so stubborn, man. Brett Bielema, he's just like, I don't care how good you are. I don't care if you can let us win or not. If you're not buddying up to me all the time, I'm not going to play you. And that's why we suck. That's why Arkansas is terrible. Now, I'm not saying you have to put up with, breaking the law or anything like that. But if a guy's just not, buddying up to you all the time and maybe he's giving you a little bit of lip back, I don't care. If he's the best player on the team, play him. I don't care. Nobody cares. You have to win. You have to win games.
I kind of wish that they'd lost this one for the program.
You and everybody else.
Yeah.
In the middle of the third quarter, I was just resigned to it. I was like, I don't care. Just rip the Band-Aid off, man.
Yeah.
Just fire him on Tuesday. Just fire him on Tuesday. You know what? No. Don't even let him. Just fire him on the field. Just Jeff Long just walks down there and goes, you got to get out of here.
Go
man.
Take his shirt. Just be like, you're done. No more.
No, you leave his shirt. Just leave his shirt on.
Yeah, man. I mean, I fully understand, and I it's just, you want to think in these games, they got it, but they really didn't have it. Like, they didn't have any control over this game, and it was like last week all over again, where it was just like, whoa, where's this talent coming from? With no organization whatsoever. It's just sort of like random spurts of like, oh wow, that guy looks good. Who is that guy?
Yeah, it's just a coaching staff that either doesn't care anymore because they know they're out of there, or they just don't know what they're doing genuinely.
Not on the same page.
But yeah, not to beat this dead horse anymore. I wouldn't recommend anybody if you're going to become a fan of a team right now. I wouldn't recommend Arkansas.
You think they play Allen next week?
No, I don't. I think Allen's done.
Yeah,
for the year.
Shut down too.
And speaking of which, I think Arkansas loses out. I think they lose to LSU. I think they lose to Mississippi State, and I think they lose to Missouri, which will put them at 4-8. Which is about after the TCU game, I said they were going 3-9 or 4-8, and that'll put them there. If they can scrap 5-7, unfortunately, Arkansas has one of the highest GPAs in Division I, which will put them in a bowl game at 5-7, and God knows nobody wants that.
It'd be really bad. Worst case scenario to me is that happens and they win the bowl game and Bielema comes back. That's worst, weirdest scenario in my opinion.
I just wanted to vomit reading that, hearing you say that.
Yeah, man. I mean, normally, I would come in and be like, hey, I think they could win this game or that one, but no, I if they lose out, it's gotten to the point where if they don't lose out, I'll be genuinely surprised.
Well, maybe like the yin and yang of us having two totally different teams right now makes this show good. I don't know, but
I personally think that rants about bad teams are. I mean, all I offer in terms of my good team is excitement over the wins and extreme caution over the upcoming games.
Yeah, I'm just kind of just sad most of the time.
I get
except for that Ole Miss game.
Yeah, that was you got to have some excitement, even if it is meaningless in the long term of the season. And that game was super exciting, and this one was exciting, but not nearly even close to as positive. But yeah, man, it's rough out there. We'll see what happens. You just gotta hope that this Arkansas offseason is a good one.
All right, man. We'll close this out with the Volunteers.
Alrighty, Tennessee. It's pretty much what I called for this game. Sort of everything I expected, except for Garantano getting hurt, which was a bummer. Glad to hear that he's okay. As I mentioned before, Vols with the 4-game skid coming into this game. Like I said, pretty much what we expected. John Kelly came back, balled out for the most part. 79 yards and 20 carries, 2 touchdowns. Garantano was serviceable while he was in the game. 9 for 13. Scored on a rushing touchdown. He got hurt. Backup Will McBride came in, and he sucks. 1 for 8. Rest of the game. 13 yards. Honestly, Southern Miss just shot themselves in the foot in this game. They threw a pick and they lost a fumble, and the Vols got out with a win. That's the game. That's what happened. The Vols defense allowed 279 yards on the day, but managed to limit Southern Miss to just a field goal in the first half and no touchdowns till midway through the fourth. So strong effort by the Vol defense. But, I mean, yeah, I don't really have much else to say about this one. Garantano getting shaken up. UT's offense continues to just be ravaged by injuries. The Vols have started 6 different offensive line combinations this year. And
that sounds like Arkansas.
Yeah, it does. They're starting to sound a lot like Arkansas. Looks like Garantano's going to be fine, but he's just going to need more protection. Otherwise, he's not going to be fine at all. I expect the Vols to lose to Missouri, as I said. And they're going to be on the road. Hopefully their kicker can play, because I think he got shaken up, Brent Camaglia, and he's gonna need to kick some field goals if they want to stay in that one, because I don't even know. Just give John Kelly the ball as much as possible, Butch, and try not to get him hurt, because they're going to need him next year. Otherwise, yeah, we'll see what happens. I don't necessarily think, I said it earlier, but I don't think Tennessee could lose out as well, in my opinion.
All right, well,
this went really south.
We saved like the 2 darkest teams for the last. Well, special thanks again to the Ole Miss Rebels and the Kentucky Wildcats for giving us the only good game in the conference this week.
Just to look at the conference, like we said, Georgia clinches the East this week with the Kentucky loss. South Carolina stays in second now, and we got Auburn firmly in second in the West at 7-2. If we're looking at I'm not seeing an updated CFP ranking. So if we're just looking at the AP, we got Alabama in first, Georgia in second, Auburn number 10, and Mississippi State 18, and LSU drops out. So yeah,
I would reckon, yeah, they're
number 25 in the coaches though, so they hang on. Anyway,
the college football playoff committee releases the new rankings tonight.
Right,
it's Tuesday, and so they'll release them tonight. I reckon that the top 4 will pretty much stay unchanged. I think Georgia's going to sit right there at the top. I think Alabama's going to be there at the number 2 spot. Notre Dame took care of Wake, so they'll be fine.
We'll see an Ohio State drop.
Obviously, Clemson wins. It'll be interesting though, because Oklahoma did beat Oklahoma State. And they were sitting at number 5, so we'll see if maybe that's enough to break them into the top 4. I doubt it. But we'll see.
Yeah, I agree. I think the 6 to 10 is where we're going to see the most changes. I could see. Where do you think Miami ends up tonight? If you got to guess,
I think Miami ends up at
with a pretty lopsided win.
Over Virginia Tech.
Right.
Boy, probably. Oh God, that's hard, man. They might sneak in at number 6. They might bump Wisconsin. Wisconsin ended up beating Indiana, which I know is great, but or you know what they could do? No, they're not going to do that. All right, I bet here's the top 7 for me right now. It's Georgia, Alabama, Notre Dame, Clemson, Oklahoma, Miami, Wisconsin.
I like it. I think that's reasonable. I will say, in the AP, for what it's worth, Miami is below Wisconsin. They're 7 and Wisconsin's 6, and I think that's because Wisconsin has another game under their belt. But it'll be very interesting to see where they put them.
All right. Well, write to us at askthebottlecast@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram @bottlecast. Listen and subscribe to us on iTunes and SoundCloud. Please leave us a rating on iTunes and tell us how we are, how you feel about us, and how kind of random and unorganized this episode was. That's totally fine.
Well, either way, no stars, 1 star, or 5. When we get that first rating, we are going to throw down.
Yeah, we're going to have a Instagram live party.
Oh, yeah.
All right, well, my name is Clint Childers. His name is Mitch Davis, the Georgia Peach.
Yeah, thank y'all for listening. We will certainly, I guess we decided to emulate the way this week felt, just super weird, super disorganized, but we had fun with it, as we always do, and we're excited to get back to you next week.
Yeah, we'll see y'all next week.